Hey, welcome to Kids Craft Lab. And today we're going to have some fun with pine cones. And I have a whole bunch of different pine cones today. And we are going to paint with them. Have you ever painted with the pine cone before? I hadn't either. And it's really fun. So let's get started. Of course, I hope you brought with you some pine cones. I have 2 containers of pine cones that we're going to work with. And I have, since it's fall, I decided to use 3 different colors of sort of fall color paint: orange, red, and yellow, just like when the leaves turn those colors. And then I have a box to work with because I don't want to make a huge mess, but I'll show you how to work without a box too, just in case you don't have a box. And then I have paper towel to keep us from getting the mess all over the place. And I have a whole bunch of brushes and a squirter and a container for my paint. And I also have some yarn because I want to show you what to do with the pine cone after you paint it. So let's get started. We're gonna, paper. Yeah, you always need some paper. So the first thing I'm gonna do is we're gonna turn it to the tabletop camera so you can see what's happening. So there's my box. So we're going to do a box pine cone painting first. And so there's my box. And I'm going to start with a piece of paper and stick it inside my box. And then I'm going to pick out my colors. Now, if you have a squirt bottle, you can just squirt it right in on your paper, just a little bit of paint, different colors of paint that you like. Or if you don't have a squirt bottle and you have a little bit of paint to pour, you can use your brush and kind of drip it and drop it into your box. But I am lucky. I have a jar that squirts paint. So I'm going to squirt some paint into my box. There's a little puddle of paint right there. And that's my yellow. Let's do some red. Little bit of red, and then of course wonderful orange. Now those are great fall leaf colors, so we got them there. Okay, so now how are we gonna paint with pine cones? Well, I have my jar here of pine cones, and I'm just gonna stick some pine cones in my box. Maybe 3 pine cones. What do you think? Yeah, 3 pine cones. And then the fun starts. I just start rolling them around. Wow, check that out. Oops, one's stuck. So I'm going to have to, we got stuck in the paint. All right, so I have to roll it a little harder to get it out of the orange. Whoa, that's kind of looking cool. There, wow. Little by little. Now you can take your finger and roll them too. But I'm going to shake them some more because I don't think I'm done. And I've got a gorgeous painting. And you never knew that you could actually paint with pine cones like that. Pretty cool. So I'm going to stick those pine cones, because they're all kind of messy right now. I'm going to stick those on my plate, and I'm going to dab them in some of the pieces of paint first, because look at how the petals of the pine cone got painted. Pretty cool, huh? Wow. So not only do I have a picture, but I've got a pretty pine cone. See that? Looking cool. So I'm putting them on a plate right by here, because when they dry, I'm going to do something special with them. All right, so there's one picture that I did. So let's see what happens. I'm going to take this paper out and set it to dry. Set it down here to dry. And I'm going to use a darker sheet of paper. So I have a black sheet of construction paper. And again, what I'm going to do is put in some paint, and I'm going to put littler puddles of paint. Squirt, 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 squirt. I'm just using little puddlers of paint rather than 2 big ones. and spreading it out a little bit. And let's see what's gonna happen here. A little bit of red, maybe some over here. And then of course some orange. Okay. Ta-da! Now, let's see what happens. So I'm going to put this, actually I'm going to put the same pine cones back in and start rolling again. What's going to happen? Oh, this is looking really spectacular. I'm shaking and rolling and shaking and rolling. I like the way it turns out when I spread the paint around rather than just one puddle of each color. Uh-oh, my other color my pine cone got stuck in the paint. So there we go. Shake, shake, shake. Looking good, looking fabulous. Lots of fall colors, like the leaves are starting to change outside. And I'm rolling and rolling and shaking and shaking. Okay, wow. Oh, cool. So I even have more paint on my pine cones, which is awesome. And there is my picture that I'm going to let dry. Ooh, sweet. I really like that. I'm going to put that on my refrigerator today when it's all dry. So I'm going to set that aside. And if you don't have a box today, and you might not, let's do a picture with some pine cones and show you how to work with that. Now you're going to want to cover your table or your kitchen counter, or wherever it is you're working, with, you know, a piece of newspaper or something that's not going to get paint on it. And so then you have some pine cones, and I have a couple of bigger pine cones. What I was working with before were pine cones from a red pine tree, and now I've got some pine cones from a white pine tree, and they're bigger and flatter. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this one first, and I'm going to take a little brush, and I'm going to put, let's see, I'm going to put a little bit of yellow paint in my little paint container. Whoops. And I'll take my brush, and I'm going to paint my pine cone. And I'm going to get a bunch of paint on there. And I think I'm actually going to squirt some on too, and then take a look at that. And then hold the pine cone and then kind of spread it with my brush a little bit. All right, so here is some orange paint. I think squirting's pretty good. It makes a lot of paint on my pine cone. So now that you've put a bunch of paint on your pine cone, I'm going to put more yellow. I think the squirting method works really cool. There we go. And I never really tried this before the other day when I was seeing how it would work. So now I'm going to just roll it. Roll it and roll it and roll it and roll it and shake it. Roll it. And I'm holding the bottom of it and I'm shaking it just a little bit. Now I'm going to scrape it and see what happens. Woo! I'm going to swirl it. That reminds me of swirling leaves. This is my swirling leaf pattern. So that's what you can do. Look at that. So yeah, so if you don't have a box and you don't want to shake your pine cone back and forth, you can just hold your pine cone steady and paint it, and then tap it on your picture, and there you have a really cool picture. Now there's another thing that you can do. If you have some paint and you, like in my little cup, and you have a squirter, if you don't have a squirting paint jar, you can use this in place. So this is a pipette, and you stick the end of that pipette in there, suck up some paint, and then you can tap it. You can squirt it onto your pine cone. So instead of brushing it, you can squirt it, and that works too. That's a good way to do it. And then roll it or tap it to get the paint onto your paper, and it looks really nice. There you go. And you know what's even cooler? Then you have a pretty pine cone left over when you're done with your painting. You have two paintings, a pine cone and a painting on paper. So it's really awesome. So I'm going to set that aside. And there was one more thing that I was going to show you with another piece of paper. Hold on a second. With my flat white pine cone. Now sometimes you get a pine cone that's open, but sometimes you find a pine cone that's more closed. See how it's a little different? It's flatter, and sometimes they're even more closed up than this. So what I'm going to do is drop a whole bunch of paint on my pine cone that's a little bit more closed up, and the petals aren't as spread out as much. And let's see what kind of a picture that's going to make. That looks like mustard and ketchup on a hot dog. Look at this. Yeah. Except we're not going to eat it. It's a pine cone. The squirrels might like it, though. I don't know. If it was really ketchup, they would. All right, so with the pine cone being more closed up, let's see what happens when we roll it and kind of print it. I'm going to press it to the side that's down there. Oh my goodness, look at that. That's kind of cool. That looks like a picture of the pine cone. I'm going to try another one right beside it. So you can roll it. So there's lots of things that you can do, lots of ways to paint with the pine cone. And you can figure it out. You can just kind of experiment like I'm doing and see what happens. Whoa, that is awesome. So now I have 3 pine cones sitting there. And I have a really cool looking pine cone there. Although this side, I think what I'm going to do is put a little bit more paint on this side because I might want to use it later. There we go. Come on, little yellow paint. Take my brush and spread it around. Now, if you've ever made a bird feeder with peanut butter and pine cones, you've been able to play with pine cones and just kind of tuck the peanut butter inside the petals. Well, this is what we're doing. We're tucking the paint inside the petals right now. A little bit more. It's looking gorgeous. All right. And there we have it. Cool. One more print. Maybe a couple more to see what happens. And of course I'm getting messy, but that's okay. All right. So now we've painted a couple of 3 different pictures with our pine cones. And I'm going to set that one aside and wipe off my hands a bit because I want to show you what you can do with your pine cones when they're all, you got your pictures, but you can also make something with the pine cones that got the paint all over them. So I think what we're going to do is go back to the FaceTime camera and I'll show you what we're going to do. There. So those are our painted pine cones, and mine are too wet to work with right now. But after yours dry, here's what you can do with them. I've got some yarn, and I've got some pine cones that don't have any paint on them yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a garland and string my pine cones together. So right now this pine cone isn't painted, but if you use your dry ones that you painted later, it'll be really beautiful. It'll be a fall garland. So this is how you do it. You have a piece of yarn, and if you take a look at the pine cone, there's petals and there's nooks and crannies, and that's where you can tuck some yarn. So that's what I'm going to do. I already did one. It's hanging there just like this. So right next to it, I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to take the yarn, and I'm going to wrap it around in a circle like that. So now I have two. And I'm going to do another one too. I have a bigger one. And there's the nooks and crannies, and I'm putting that yarn, wrapping that yarn around the nooks and crannies and back around on itself like that. And now I have three. Ta-da! And if you're using the ones that you painted, it's going to look really spectacular, and you can hang it up in your doorway or window. It's going to have all the fall colors. And now I've got one more white pine cone, and it's got nooks and crannies too. So I'm going to go around with the yarn and around just like that. Whoops, I broke it. It'll be all right. And I've got a whole string of pine cones, and you can hang them up wherever you want. And when my painted pine cones get dry, I'm going to put them on here. And you know what? You could actually even paint the ones. I'll probably paint these later. Okay, so that's what you can do with your pine cones when you're dry. And of course, hang up your beautiful pictures on your refrigerator when they're dry, because they're going to turn out gorgeous. So thanks for coming to Kids Craft Lab today. We hope you had a good time with the pine cones, and join us again next time. Bye.
Well, thank you to everybody that joined us. We had fun working with you today. If you're catching this video later on YouTube, then join us live next time. It's even more fun when we're doing crafts and we can collaborate and do things together. So that's every Tuesday at 11 a.m. There's a link on our website, greatlakeskids.org. Click on offerings and you can see all of our programs right there. The other virtual programs we're doing every week are Storytime Adventures every Thursday at 11. So we're telling stories, and there's a hands-on activity to do with that as well. And then we're also doing First Step Science every Friday at 11. So we're exploring science and we're doing hands-on experiments. Those are all interactive, hands-on programs. They're all at 11 o'clock, and they're all on our website. If you're interested in keeping this type of programming on the air, we appreciate any donations you can give. Go to greatlakeskids.org/donate, and you can find information on donating and a link to do so right there. And all the information is there. We hope that you join us live next time. And until then, we'll say goodbye. Bye.
Bye.